Imagine a time when a poultice of mud or a cup of mandrake tea held more promise than any steel scalpel. In this video, we'll explore 7 unusual medieval remedies that actually worked, blending mysticism with practical chemistry. From mustard plasters that ignited circulation to honeyed dressings powerful enough to fend off infection, these treatments reveal the surprising ingenuity of our ancestors. Whether you're curious about ancient medical lore or seeking DIY natural therapies, you'll discover secrets that survived plague and superstition, and still deserve a second look today. Mustard plasters that ignited healing. To clear congestion and drive fresh blood into tired muscles, medieval healers turned to a kitchen staple: mustard. They ground black mustard seeds into a coarse powder, mixed it with warm water or vinegar to form a paste, and spread it thickly across a strip of linen. When applied to the chest or limbs, the plaster produced a stinging heat that felt sharp but controllable. That warmth signaled increased circulation. Blood vessels dilated, carrying immune cells to inflamed tissues and loosening stubborn phlegm from the lungs. Chronic respiratory issues, common among soldiers enduring damp camps and smoky hearths, often responded better to mustard plasters than to fumigations of incense alone. Monastic infirmaries and battlefield surgeons alike prized the technique for its simplicity and effectiveness. Recipe books such as the 12th century Trotula describe adjusting the plaster's potency by adding honey to soothe skin or pouring in wine for a milder burn. Some practitioners layered multiple strips to amplify the effect, removing them after 10 to 15 minutes once redness signaled peak activity. Beyond respiratory relief, mustard plasters treated muscle aches and joint stiffness. When placed on sore backs or arthritic knees, the warmth penetrated deeper than massage alone, melting tension and guiding blood into neglected areas. Because the ingredients were cheap and widely available, mustard seeds traded along major routes, every village apothecary and manor house kept them on hand. Modern studies affirm the basic science. Mustard's active compound, allyl isothiocyanate, triggers sensory receptors that mimic heat, prompting vasodilation and the release of pain-modulating substances. Today's sports therapists sometimes use commercial mustard pack products inspired by these medieval remedies, validating centuries of empirical use. However, healers cautioned against leaving plasters on too long. Prolonged exposure risked blistering or chemical burns. They recommended testing on a small patch of skin and using a clean linen base to avoid contamination from soot or dust. Labels, often simple ribbons tied to the cloth, warned novices when to peel away the plaster. From the soggy fields of Agincourt to the rustic cottages of rural England, mustard plasters served as first-line treatment when doctors' visits were rare luxuries. Their enduring legacy reminds us that even the humblest kitchen ingredient can bridge the gap between folk wisdom and medical efficacy. Thermal mud poultices from hot springs. Picture a rugged medieval spa where steam curls off bubbling pools rich in mineral-laden mud. Villagers scooped this warm, sulfurous earth into cloth wraps and pressed it onto bruises, boils, and arthritic joints. The poultice's heat eased pain through the same vasodilation as mustard, while minerals like sulfur and silica offered antiseptic and exfoliating benefits. Hot spring mud contained trace elements not found in ordinary clay: iron for tissue repair, magnesium for muscle relaxation, and sulfur compounds renowned for antimicrobial action. Healers believed that the Earth's heat drew toxins out of wounds. Today, we recognize that mild hyperthermia can increase metabolic activity in damaged tissues, accelerating the body's natural healing processes. Monastic infirmaries adjacent to natural springs, such as those at Bath Abbey in England or the spas of Aachen in present-day Germany, institutionalized mud therapy. Pilgrims traveled long distances for these treatments, chroniclers noting reduced swelling in arthritic pilgrims and faster recovery in injured knights. Manuals instructed layering the mud between linen, warming it over embers, and applying it for no more than 20 minutes to avoid overheating or skin maceration. Modern dermatology echoes these medieval practices. Spa resorts still market thermal mud wraps for detoxification, and studies show that peloid therapy, using matured mud, can relieve psoriasis and rheumatic pain. By understanding the composition and application techniques of medieval mud poultices, off-grid healers can replicate low-tech versions, sterilizing local clay, mixing it with hot water, and harnessing natural geothermal heat when available. When used responsibly, these ancient poultices remind us that nature's pharmacy extends beneath our feet, warm, moistened, and waiting to soothe. Psychedelic herbal infusions. In measured doses, these psychoactive brews soothed excruciating headaches, eased chronic pain, and even lifted the spirits of those burdened by melancholy. Mandrake, Mandragora officinarum, contains scopolamine and hyoscyamine, alkaloids that modulate the nervous system. Henbane, Hyoscyamus niger, adds its own tropane compounds, amplifying sedative and analgesic effects. Medieval apothecaries combined these herbs with honey and wine to mask bitterness, carefully calibrating portions to avoid delirium or toxic overdose. Medical texts like Nicholas Culpeper's 17th century herbal, drawing on earlier manuscripts, advise starting with a single teaspoon of infusion, watching for drowsiness and pupils' dilation as indicators of potency. Practitioners noted relief in migraine sufferers within an hour, attributing improvements to the herb's ability to interrupt pain signals and induce a light trance, what some modern researchers liken to targeted neural reset. Because of the risks, such infusions were dispensed only by trusted healers. Guild regulations in late medieval towns required licenses to handle nightshade family plants. Overuse could lead to hallucinations, nervous agitation, or dry throat, necessitating antidotes like boiled lettuce or dill tea to counteract toxicity. Today, microdosing psychedelics is a growing field in mental health research. While mandrake and henbane are too unpredictable for mainstream use, their medieval employment underscores the potential of plant alkaloids for controlled therapeutic effects. Contemporary herbalists explore related species, such as California poppy, for safer applications. But the medieval blueprint remains a testament to early psychopharmacology. By studying dosing rituals, antidote pairings, and ceremonial contexts, modern practitioners can glean cautionary lessons. Potency varies by harvest season, soil quality, and plant age. Accurate record-keeping, once reserved for monastic ledgers, becomes crucial when dealing with nature's most potent compounds. Leeches with medicinal licenses. In medieval Europe, bloodletting was as common as taking a pulse. Leech therapy offered a controlled way to rebalance the humors, reduce inflammation, and relieve abscesses. Leeches, typically Hirudo medicinalis, were farmed in secluded ponds at monastery infirmaries. Each healer held a medicinal license granted by local guilds or church authorities, stipulating the number of leeches allowed per patient and the conditions under which they could be used. These regulations aim to curb abuse and prevent complications like anemia. When treating fevers, headaches, or localized swelling, a healer would apply the leech to the skin, often enticing it with a small incision or salt to encourage attachment. As the leech fed, it injected anticoagulants like hirudin, promoting blood flow and gently drawing off congested blood. A single session lasting 20 to 30 minutes could remove up to 15 milliliters of blood. Healers monitored patients closely, bandaging the bite site afterward and using herbal compresses such as comfrey poultices to staunch any excessive bleeding. Records in 14th century hospital ledgers detail both the therapeutic successes and cautionary tales. Overuse sometimes led to weakness, requiring iron-rich broths to restore vitality. Modern medicine has reclaimed leech therapy for microsurgery and reconstructive procedures, leveraging their anticoagulant-rich saliva to improve blood flow in grafts and reattach digits. The medieval model, regulated, observed, and combined with wound care, provides a blueprint for safe application, trained practitioners, patient monitoring, and post-treatment support. Leeches remind us that even the most unsettling remedies can harbor profound medical value when guided by regulation and expertise, principles as relevant today as they were beneath the flicker of candlelight. Honeyed wound dressings. Picture a feudal battlefield where the wounded cry out for relief, and amid the chaos, a simple jar of honey becomes a healer's greatest ally. Medieval surgeons, often monks versed in natural lore, recognized honey's remarkable antiseptic properties long before germ theory, They spread thick layers of raw honey onto clean linen or hemp bandages and pressed them gently onto cuts, ulcers, and burns. Honey's high sugar concentration creates an osmotic effect, drawing fluid out of bacterial cells and dehydrating pathogens. Its low pH and the presence of hydrogen peroxide produced by the enzyme glucose oxidase further inhibit microbial growth. Even today, medical-grade honey, sterilized but chemically intact, is used in modern wound care to prevent infection and promote faster healing. Recipes in texts like the 13th century Regimen Sanitatis Salernitanum recommended mixing honey with crushed garlic or crushed onion to boost antibiotic action. Some healers added a pinch of alum or myrrh resin for added astringency and pain relief. The resulting dressing adhered well to wounds, maintained moisture balance, and required less frequent changes, critical in eras when clean linens were scarce. Monastic infirmaries meticulously documented applications, changing dressings only when seepage slowed, and ensuring that honey remained fresh by sealing containers with beeswax. They also harvested honey locally from monastery apiaries, controlling for purity and reducing exposure to contaminants often found in wild hives. Modern clinical trials corroborate medieval wisdom. Honey dressings accelerate granulation tissue formation and reduce healing time in chronic wounds, such as diabetic ulcers. In resource-limited settings, gauze soaked in unprocessed, locally sourced honey offers an affordable, effective alternative to synthetic antimicrobial dressings. By blending empirical observation with the natural potency of honey, medieval healers crafted a remedy that transcends time, reminding us that some of the best medicines come straight from the hive. Stone soup mineral broths. Medieval healers believed that certain stones, like soapstone or limestone, released beneficial minerals when boiled, fortifying broths used to treat bone weakness, joint pain, and general debility. To prepare, apothecaries first cleaned the chosen stone over an open flame, then dropped it into a pot of water alongside healing botanicals such as nettle, burdock root, and meadowsweet. As the mixture simmered for hours, calcium, magnesium, and trace elements leached from the rock into the liquid. Villagers consumed the resulting stone soup in small cups, often kneeling for grace and infusing the ritual with solemnity. Medieval texts like the 14th century Liber de Diversis Medicinis describe selecting stones from riverbeds deemed pure by local custom, stones unblemished by white iron stains or flaking. Healers monitored pH changes with simple litmus-like herbs, e.g. hibiscus petals, ensuring the broth stayed mildly alkaline to optimize mineral solubility. For bone fractures, the process repeated daily for weeks, with patients reporting stronger bones and reduced pain. Modern analysis confirms that heated calcium carbonate releases measurable calcium and carbonate ions into solution. While concentrations were modest in times of dietary deficiency when dairy or green vegetables were scarce, these broths provided vital supplement of hard-to-find nutrients. In fact, today's bone broths and mineral infusions echo this medieval practice, emphasizing long simmer times and consideration of vessel material to maximize nutrient extraction. By understanding stone soup, we appreciate how medieval communities compensated for limited diets using locally available geology, transforming humble rocks into nourishing medicines that supported skeletal health for generations. Smoke fumigation chambers. Picture a small chamber lined with clay walls, its entrance sealed except for a narrow vent. Inside, fresh bundles of juniper, thyme, and rosemary smolder on heated stones, producing aromatic smoke thought to purify both air and spirit. During the Black Death and other outbreaks, medieval physicians deployed portable fumigation chambers to disinfect garments, bedding, and even sick rooms. Smoke's antimicrobial properties stem from volatile phenols and terpenes released by burning herbs. As smoke penetrated textiles and crept into crevices, it killed lice, fleas, and airborne pathogens. Plague doctors recommended a regimen of fumigation, an hour of smoke exposure followed by airing out in sunlight, a primitive but effective two-step sterilization. Chroniclers from 14th century Florence recount guilds organizing public fumigation days, where residents brought belongings to communal chambers heated by brazier fires. Regulations ensured proper herb-to-wood ratios and controlled airflow, balancing efficacy with fire safety. Some monastic orders adapted their infirmary apothecaries into stationary fumigation rooms, marking a shift toward institutionalized public health measures. Modern studies validate smoke's disinfectant role. Essential oil vapors exhibit bactericidal and fungicidal activity against a range of microbes. While we've largely abandoned smoke chambers for chemical disinfectants, small-scale fumigation, like wood smoke sterilization of beehives, remains in use. Revisiting medieval smoke chambers can inspire low-tech sanitation solutions in resource-limited settings, leveraging local flora instead of imported chemicals. Urine-based disinfectants. Behind the ivy-clad walls of a monastery infirmary, clay amphorae stood in cool cellars, each one collecting street runoff urine deemed too precious to waste. After weeks of sealed fermentation, urea broke down into ammonia, turning Succi urinaria into one of the most reliable antiseptics available when wine and vinegar ran out. Instead of watering down the story, medieval pharmacy manuals outline precise steps. Skim off surface sediments daily. Strain the liquid through multiple layers of clean linen, then dilute 1 part fermented urine with 3 to 4 parts water, never more, or healthy tissue risked chemical burns. Healers would soak fresh linen bandages in this solution and press them onto gangrenous wounds or festering ulcers. Chroniclers from the late 1300s note not only the rapid disappearance of foul odors, but also the uncanny speed with which protective scabs formed, halting the spread of infection in times when surgical tools often did more harm than good. Guild-licensed urine masters oversaw every amphora. They recorded the date of first fill, monitored fermentation temperatures in dank cellars, and trained apprentices in dose testing. A drop on unbroken skin had to sting just enough to confirm potency without causing a blister. Failure to meet standards could mean a relapse or worse, so regulations were strict, rivaling those for salves made from rare imported spices. Fast forward to today, and laboratory tests confirm medieval insight. Ammonia solutions at pH levels above 9 show significant bactericidal activity against Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. In disaster zones or off-grid scenarios where modern disinfectants aren't available, an improvised urinous vinegar remains a last resort weapon against sepsis. Here's the takeaway. What our ancestors discarded as waste became a carefully regulated, life-saving chemical cocktail. Next time you reach for a sterile wipe, remember that survival sometimes depends on looking past the foul to find the function. These 7 unusual medieval remedies reveal a world where resourcefulness and observation forged real medical breakthroughs. From mineral-rich broths stirred with stones to scented smoke purging invisible threats, our ancestors tapped nature's pharmacy with tools at hand. If you're intrigued by these time-tested cures, subscribe and hit the bell for more deep dives into the lost arts of survival and healing. Share your thoughts below. What ancient remedy would you dare to try?